chat or anyone's faces. So let me just share my screen. Right. Sorry, I'm just trying to. Never mind. I was trying to hide the faces on my right. Apologies. That's better. Right. Okay. So nursing support workers creating an exhibition and events program. And you can see the picture on the right here is a painting that was donated to the RCN archive recently by a lady whose mother was a VAD in the First World War and passed that on to her. So just to give you a bit of an overview of the RCN exhibitions and events program. It's a pretty busy program. We have a 6-monthly program of exhibitions which run in our London HQ in Oxford Circus, and then they travel up to Scotland to RCN Edinburgh, where they run for another 6 months. And exhibitions that we've held here in London and in Edinburgh have covered a huge range of nursing history topics, from military nursing through to the history of learning disability nursing, which you can see in the picture here. Our current exhibition looks at nursing experiences of the COVID-19 pandemic and considers how that's compared with nursing contributions to previous pandemics, such as the flu pandemic 1918. And our upcoming exhibition is the History of Children's and Young People's Nursing, which will be opening next month. And then after that, the next exhibition will, of course, be an exhibition that looks at the history of nursing support work and also at the current climate of nursing support work. So here's just a few pictures of some previous exhibitions that we've run at the RCN. These are, I should say, these are all pictures from London HQ. But the objects in the images always travel up to Edinburgh as well. So you can see in the top left-hand corner, that's an exhibition called The Wandering Womb, which looked at the history of women's health. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see one of our display cases in our current exhibition, Unmasked, which, as I said, looks at nursing stories in COVID-19. And you can see in the panel there, it's Kevin Morley, nursing associate, with one of his talking about his experience of nursing during the pandemic. So we also run, alongside all of our exhibitions, an exciting program of events, which range from panel events, where we always have a historical speaker paired with contemporary nurses. We hold arts events and activities, sometimes for young people, sometimes for a more general audience. And we also hold an RCN member-specific range of activities called Time 2, which really aim to provide RCN members with a bit of a space from the day-to-day stresses of everyday life, and cover things like meditation, yoga, creative activities. So we've got a Time 2 event next week on poetry, time to write poetry. We've also held comedy nights, theatre nights, late events at RCN HQ, and RCN Scotland also hold a range of events to accompany the Edinburgh range of the exhibition. But essentially all of our RCN library and archive events need to be aimed at a general audience. So they're not just for RCN members, they're for a general audience, and members of the public welcome to come and encouraged to come along. And they always have a historical, artistic or creative element. So our next big event will be the launch of the History of Children and Young People's Nursing on the 8th of November, which you're all very welcome to come along to. It's a hybrid event, so it will also be online, but we'll share some information about that separately. So what we have just started doing, and what hopefully you're going to be part of, is volunteer-led exhibitions. So for these, we put a call out and we invite RCN members to come in and work with us to co-create the content of our exhibitions and also of the events programme that I just mentioned. So I thought what might be clearest is if I just talked a little bit about the history of Children and Young People's Nursing project that we've just run, where we worked with a group of about 10 to 20 volunteers who sort of dipped in and out. But I'd say in the end, we had about 10 very active volunteers who worked with us to research and write an exhibition looking at the history of caring for children and young people. So most of them had worked in children's nursing at some point in their careers, or even are still working in that area. But that wasn't at all a necessary requirement. They just had to be RCN members with an interest in getting involved. So you can see two of them there in the center of my slide. And you can see here a little sneak preview of the history of caring for children timeline that our volunteers helped to research and put together, and also the poster for the exhibition there on the left. So just to tell you a little bit about how a project like this might work. So I'm just going to have a drink. So really, we aim to get you involved in every stage of putting together the exhibition. And we're going to start with an induction day on Wednesday, the 15th of November in person at London HQ. Now, it's not at all essential that you attend the HQ induction. There will be an online element to that as well, which I'll come on to in a moment. But you can see some of our children and young people's volunteers in the picture here from their induction day earlier this year. And they came in and had a tour of the London building, and then also had the chance to learn a bit more about our collections. And as part of that, and we'll be doing this for you guys as well, we offered some training in object handling and handling rare books. And you can see some of the collection laid out on the table here. And Di, who's our collections specialist, got out a really lovely range of children's and young people's nursing books and manuals. And she'll be doing the same for those of you who make it to our induction next month. And yeah, so it should be a really interesting day. And then as part of that, as I say, we'll have an online element. So those of you who make it to the induction at HQ will attend this in person, but anyone who can't make it to London, we're going to have an online focus group where we start to think about what would an exhibition about the history of nursing support work look like? What themes might we consider? How might we tell the stories that you guys want to tell, and how are we going to go about, researching those stories? So I can see some messages in the chat. Just check that. Oh yeah, no, we're good. So yes, so we will send more information about sign up for those. I know the sign up has gone out, and I think Sarah's just put that in the chat there. You can see in the corner, the picture I've used here isn't actually from one of our focus groups. It's from the nursing support worker online events that the team held back in, I think it was November 2020. Apologies if I've got the date wrong. It might have been early 2021, and offers in the corner there, but it was a very powerful event. But I just wanted to get across the fact that we're very much hoping that this will be a hybrid project. We know that people live in different places, and with the History of Children and Young People's Nursing project, we've been really successful at getting people together online and discussing ideas for the exhibition and really sort of impacting what that exhibition looks like in the end. So, sorry, I've jumped slides for some reason. Oh no, there we go. So in addition to the focus groups, we have some really interesting training lined up to support you guys in working on the exhibition with us. So next month, sorry, on the 7th of December, we've got a research training session with Teresa Doherty, who's the professional lead for the History of Nursing Forum. And she's going to lead a session on how to get started on researching content for an exhibition about the history of nursing support workers. And that's going to be online. And then we've got some interpretation training with David Francis, who you can see with his yellow umbrella on the right there. He's a freelance museum trainer, and he's going to look in detail with some practical, fun and engaging exercises about how you write exhibition text and object labels. And that's going to be in the new year on the 10th of January. So again, we'll send information out about this, about the training nearer the time. And I know you've all had a programme with an outline of the project as well. So I just thought I'd sort of delve back a bit into the type of things we might want to think about when we put our exhibition together. And so thinking about the type of aims an exhibition like this might have. So as I say, the RCN Library and Archive exhibitions are very much aimed at non-nursing specialists. So, we want to reach out to the general public and invite people into the RCN and to sort of help them understand and the stories that you want to tell. So it's not aimed at a nursing expert audience, although we hope, of course, that nursing support workers and other nursing staff will be interested in coming along. So yeah, I've just included a few examples of the type of exhibition aims that we might have. So exploring early types of nursing support work, such as, for example, VADs in the First World War, who weren't registered nurses, but who did really important work at time of national crisis. Perhaps we might try and convey an understanding of the different settings that nursing support work takes place in, whether that's care settings, hospitals, out in the community. And perhaps particularly importantly, I'm sure, will be the impact that nursing support workers have on their patients and perhaps on society more widely. And we might want to tell some really personal stories as part of the exhibition. We might want to highlight what other areas of nursing can learn from nursing support work. We might want to raise public awareness of nursing support work as a key field and encourage young people to consider it as a career. So those are just some sort of food for thought that I wanted to put out there. And I'm sure we'll have a chance to have a good discussion of what we'd like this exhibition to do in our focus group. Just a bit about how we tell stories in our exhibitions. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. Our exhibitions are quite, we try to make them as multimedia, multisensory as possible. So you can see on the right-hand side here, we've got an iPad, which we can use to tell stories through audio and video. So in our Unmasked exhibition, for example, we worked with a theatre production company called China Plate, who recruited healthcare workers from across the country to create audio pieces telling their stories of nursing during the COVID-19 pandemic. And those feature as 5 and now 6, in fact, because as part of the Unmasked project, we worked with a new group of RCN members to create another audio piece. And visitors to the exhibition can listen to those really powerful audio stories on the iPad in their own time. And you can also listen to those online. I should have mentioned that all of our exhibitions go up online, so you can we'll perhaps share the link in the chat or a bit later. If you have a look on our the RCN Library and Archive events and exhibitions pages, you can see that we've got a huge number of past exhibitions, some of which I've touched on already, and you can see the online versions of those exhibitions and have a look at those at your leisure. You can see in the bottom right of this slide some of the placards from the industrial action from the Fair Pay campaign, which we included in the Unmasked exhibition. We felt it was a really important part of that story, part of this sense of nursing not being valued at the end of a really difficult time, when nurses had really, and nursing staff had really stood up and met a lot of challenges and really proved that society needs them. So we went onto the picket lines and worked with nursing staff to collect placards that formed part of that story. And you can see the panel in the middle there, sort of explaining that. So other ways that we might want to tell stories in the exhibition, obviously, telling stories through objects is really important. So that's one way that the children's nursing exhibition that I've been talking about, participants in that project have selected objects maybe from their career, but perhaps you know, from friends and colleagues that they know, that tell stories that are important to them and that they think really convey why children's and young people's nursing is an important area. So I'll come to a couple of examples of those in a moment. But also, you know, artistic commissions are always an option. The China Plate audio that I just mentioned, you know, was an artistic commission, and also we've got an amazing doodle wall in our current exhibition where graphic artists worked with RCN members to draw stories of nursing during COVID-19. So there's visual and sort of tactile ways in which you can tell stories in an exhibition as well. It doesn't all have to be about text on the wall. And I've put other ideas there because it might be something we can have a bit of a chat about at the end of this session as well. So contemporary object examples that I just mentioned. So you can see Ursula in the corner there. She's a retired community children's nurse and was a participant in the Children and Young People's Nursing exhibition that launches next month. And she selected her leather bag and puppet that you can see. It's sort of a bird's nest puppet peeking out of the top of her leather bag, and she wrote a label to accompany the bag and puppet that will feature in the exhibition. I think in the end we've decided just to feature the puppet due to space, but you can see her story on the panel here. I've used this leather bag for many years as my work bag for community visits. I carried crayons, paper and a glove puppet alongside professional patient files, hand rub, plastic aprons, gloves, a stethoscope, blood taking equipment, plasters and more. And this story forms part of one of the key sort of themes of the exhibition, where we looked at children and young people's well-being and how methods of treating young people and ensuring their well-being have changed over time. And so Ursula's story sort of formed part of that idea of the importance of play, but also distraction techniques, and also the emergence, for example, of the community children's nurse as an important role from the late 1940s onwards. And, you know, Ursula hadn't ever taken part in an exhibition like this before, and she wrote her label as part of the interpretation training that I mentioned earlier. So the idea with this project is we will very much support you along the way to develop the skills that you need to write object labels and exhibition captions. And we will also be providing individual support where necessary. You know, we'll be at the end of an email if you want us to provide advice on what you're writing. And yeah, so we'll go into that in a bit more detail in our upcoming training. And then just thought I'd finish with an example of a historical object that relates to VAD work. So moving away from the Children and Young People's Nursing exhibition and back to nursing support work. This is a really wonderful scrapbook which belongs to a lady called Josephine Angoise, who was a VAD during the First World War. And her scrapbook is full of amazing photographs of herself and her VAD colleagues and the patients and soldiers that they treated, and also newspaper cuttings from the time, and some drawings and notes. so that would just be an example of something from the RCN collection that we might want to include in our exhibition. And, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And, we'd really love it if you guys got involved in having a look at the RCN collections, but also other collections like the Imperial War Museum. For the History of Children's Nursing exhibition, we have secured external loans from places like the Foundling Museum. So we've got a token from the Foundling Museum, which mother left with the museum. Sorry, with the Foundling Hospital when she left her child there in the late 18th century. We've also got items coming from the old operating theatre. It's from an old tonsil guillotine from the 1950s. And we've got a breast pump because one of our children's nurse volunteers had set up a milk bank up in Cheshire. So we've got some information about contemporary milk banks alongside this historical breast pump from the 1940s. So yeah, there's lots of possibilities out there. And I will come out of sharing.